Style is a way to say who you are without having to speak. Rachel Zoe. I like to think of fashion as a language. It's a form of expression. It's communication with the world. When you get dressed in the morning, whether you're thinking carefully about what you put on your body or not, you're sharing something about who you are with the world. You're using your clothes as a personality name tag. And not only that, you are communicating with those around you, your identity, your likes, who you're inspired by, your beliefs, your culture, your vibe, everything. Your style is like a public preview into who you are. And I think there's so much power in that. There's so much power in fashion. If you think about it, let's say you see somebody walking around in a bright pink short tutu skirt with long eyelashes, dramatic sunglasses, and maybe just a simple vest with knee-high boots. A pretty dramatic outfit. But exactly, it's a pretty dramatic outfit. And you would think that, oh, wow, that person seems bold. They seem like a pretty confident person, a unique individual, and is probably into fashion with maybe a quirky personality. I don't know. And maybe they're even inspired by ballet culture because of the tutu. But the point is, you interpret all of these different things from what that person is wearing. And let's say, as opposed to her, a guy walking around in a plain white t-shirt with jeans and some basic sneakers and a backpack. You might think, oh, he's not really into fashion. He's just your average guy. Granted, there's much less to interpret from this guy, but that's exactly the point. He's still conveying something about himself through what he's wearing. He's conveying that he's not really interested in fashion and he's maybe interested in other things. That is conveying something about himself to the world. There's so much power in what we wear. Fashion has always been more than just clothing. So in honor of London Fashion Week ending, actually London Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week just ending and Milan and Paris Fashion Week now coming, I wanted to do an episode about the power of fashion. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about what we just talked about, self-expression, and how fashion can be a form of self-expression, well, is innately a form of self-expression, how fashion shapes and influences culture, how fashion can be a tool of empowerment, even the role of fashion in issues like equality and sustainability, because it does definitely play a major role, and how fashion even influences relationships in our society. And then, of course, we'll briefly discuss at the end the future of fashion, because, of course, we have to always be talking about the future in some way, shape, or form. So let's jump into it. So like I said, there's so much power in what we wear and what we decide our style is. And style is not a fixed thing. It's not stagnant. Style can never be stagnant. It changes and evolves over time, and it evolves actually quite a lot. Sometimes your style can change tomorrow. You can change the kind of style that you like maybe next week, or sometimes it changes over years. And I did some research about when we first start developing our own sense of style, and it's actually a bit disputed at what age we start to develop our own personal style. Some people say it's in your 20s, which I guess does make sense, because in your 20s you start to figure out more about who you are. But I'm more on the side of people who say it's around like age 2 and in those earlier years when you start to develop your own personal style. It's around that time when we start to, reject the types of clothes that our parents are putting us in, because we're developing our own identity, and developing your own identity is innately linked to fashion and your sense of style. It's a representation of your identity. So those kids that you've seen walking around or walking through the supermarket with their parents, and they're wearing these princess costumes or crazy mismatched clothes, and you can just tell that they dress themselves. At that point is when we truly start to develop who we are, and when we truly start to utilize the power of fashion. So just like what our quote of the day says from Rachel Zoe, style is a way to say who you are and even what you're feeling without having to say a word. If you see somebody wearing, let's say, all black with kind of an emo vibe to their clothing, they might be perceived as more reserved or serious, or maybe like a darker personality, as opposed to somebody who wears bright or flamboyant colors, who might be perceived to be more upbeat with a jolly personality. Fashion kind of gives people, like I said, a public preview into who you are and also how you're feeling and your moods and that kind of thing. And of course, it's not always so black and white. It's absolutely possible and happens a lot where the two personalities that I described might be completely opposite. But the point is that their outfits are saying something about them to the world. And for people who come from cultures where there are certain clothing requirements, you can tell what their religion is. Let's say they're wearing a hijab or a burqa. You can tell the religion of those people through their clothing, and it tells you something about them instantly. And of course, with all of the different fashion aesthetics and niches of today, and I mean, maybe not just today. I might be wrong about that because I think there were aesthetics and niches back in the day as well. But I think we have really started to label a lot of different fashion aesthetics much more now. Because of that, you can almost immediately tell what someone's vibe might be depending on what aesthetic they fit or what aesthetic that they choose to stick with. I mean, there's so many. Like, oh my gosh, let me see how many I can think of. There's grunge, there's vintage, there's balletcore, there's gothic, punk rock. Early 2000s or Y2K has been a really popular one throughout the years as well. Soft girl, there's so many different ones, so many different aesthetics that so many different people fit. And when you see a fashion aesthetic that somebody is wearing, you ultimately make an unconscious perception about that person and what that person might be like. And of course, with that, fashion is a really powerful force when it comes to important social interactions. So one of the most important social interactions, probably the most important social interaction in our lives, which fashion, of course, plays a major role in, is the first impression. The first impression is a huge deal. The first impression is the big deal. Whether it's a job interview, let's say you're meeting your partner's parents, or you're meeting a group of friends for the first time, or you're going to school for the first day of school, whatever it might be, we all think about what we wear to first impressions. Because ultimately we know that our fashion says something about who we are. So it's a big deal what you wear to your first impression because your outfit speaks before you do. What people see us wearing tells them something about us before we even open our mouths. And that's exactly what the quote is saying. Your style speaks for you without you having to say anything at all. And you want to make sure on a first impression that your style is saying exactly what you want it to say, which is why so many people take so long to figure out their first day of school outfit or their interview outfit or something like that. I definitely do all the time. Sometimes I even think heavily about what outfit I'm going to wear to the supermarket because I don't know who I'm going to see there. Or, well, it's not really only for people, it's also for myself. But we'll get to that as well and how fashion impacts your own self-perception. But fashion is a really powerful force when it comes to speaking for us, which is why I say fashion is like a language. So let's talk a little bit about the cultural impact of fashion. So I did a bit of research for this, guys, because I know a bit about this topic, but I don't know enough to come and tell you guys stuff straight from my head. So your girl is partially educated about the cultural impact of fashion. So here we go. No matter where you go, fashion in some way, shape, or form has been able to reflect the social norms and major historical moments of our time. And I'm not just talking about trends because trends are recycled. Trends come and go. We've seen trends that have been coming back throughout the years. Like skinny jeans are out, more baggy pants are in, which is something from like the early 2000s. We've seen corsets come back. There's so many different things. Trends are very much recycled, but I'm talking about fashion actually impacting our culture and our history. Whether it's not showing certain levels of skin or accepting or not accepting things like cross-dressing, we're able to interpret the values of a society or culture by the type of fashion that is accepted there. That's a given. And many times, what is a socially accepted fashion in a culture is usually connected to that culture's history. And that history is also connected to fashion. So I know that was really complex. I know I'm getting a little confusing now. So let me give you some examples to make sure you're still following me. So I'm going back again to the Middle Eastern countries because they're the most obvious ones I can think of. But a lot of Middle Eastern countries tend to have fashion that is very much coded in religious values and cultural values. So the culture of those religions and those and that culture heavily values modesty and a heightened level of privacy, and that's very much reflected in the clothing that they wear and the clothing that's accepted. So things, once again, like the hijab and the burqa, and not wearing really short things or not showing certain parts of the body, are connected to their values and their culture and also the history and religion of those places. And then if we go to places like London in the 60s, oh my God, this before I actually talk about that, I was once again, like I said, doing my research for this topic. And when I found this one, it excited me so much, especially because it deals with some issues that I'm very much focused on, but this one was so interesting to me. So in the 1960s, the miniskirt in places like London became a symbol of the women's liberation movement and a form of rebellion, especially among really young women who began to use the miniskirt as a way of challenging that traditional model of what a woman should be, very modest and reserved ideas of the traditional housewife who wears super reserved clothing and is not very revealing and is very subdued. And they used this piece of clothing, the miniskirt, to represent ideas of feminism and embrace that young, sexy, single, carefree girl who's proud of her sexuality and confident in her power and prowess. And that's such a powerful thing that is encapsulated in literally an item of clothing that became a symbol. And another example of that would be the afro in the US civil rights movement, which became a symbol of Black power and resistance and was a really powerful symbol for that movement. And even though hair is not clothing, every Black girl knows that your hair is an accessory. So it is a part of your fashion. And the fact that people were able to use their hair as a form of revolt, of rebellion, of advocating for Black rights, of advocating for feminism when it came to the miniskirt, it just shows that innate power that fashion has to shape societies and shake up the norm. And there's so many stories like these of fashion being interlinked with history and even influencing history. Fashion has also even had major roles in influencing the gender fluidity movement, which we've seen through things like drag and cross-dressing and men wearing makeup and those different kinds of things, and also men wearing heels back in the day. There's so many different aspects of fashion that has been able to create room for social change. And I really encourage you to look into it more if it's something that you're interested in, because it's a very intriguing topic. And I'm pretty sure that they teach this fashion history and the impact of fashion on culture and society as a literal degree in schools, just to show you how intense this topic is. And oh my gosh, of course, it's just no secret that every single year, fashion weeks all over the world, and especially in the world's most popular cities like London, New York, Milan, Paris, Fashion Week just takes over those societies and brings a wealth of culture. But fashion weeks don't only bring a wealth of culture and life to societies. That's the main focus, yeah, but there's something else. There's a greater power that fashion has beyond this, and that's its ability to bring in money. Big money, guys. Big money. So I found this article when I was doing my research from Fashion United, and this is what they said. And this is a quote. In New York, Fashion Week generates close to 900 million US dollars every year for the city. Insane. And London Fashion Week revealed that fashion represents over 28 billion pounds for the UK's GDP every single year. That's insane. That is actually insane. That is a crazy amount of money, a crazy amount of revenue coming in just from Fashion Week. And we're not even talking about general fashion and general retail fashion and everyday fashion industry. We're talking about Fashion Week specifically. So obviously fashion holds immense financial power as well, which, to be honest, I guess is really not a huge surprise if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, because obviously we all wear clothes and for the most part we all want to look good, and it always makes your day a little bit better if you have a good outfit on or if somebody compliments your outfit. I mean, it, at least for me, I don't know about you guys. No, I know that you guys feel better when somebody compliments your outfit. It gives you a little oomph for the day. I feel like if you have a good outfit on and you know you have a good outfit on, it instantly makes you more confident. 100%. And then on the flip side, I know for sure that for me, when I put on an outfit that doesn't really feel right to me, I don't feel like I look the best in it, The colors don't suit me, the fit of the pants or the top isn't right, and the accessories aren't working, and my hair isn't doing the thing that it's supposed to do, and everything's just going wrong. And when I go out like that, or I just settle for an outfit, ultimately I don't feel as confident when I go outside. I would have instantly lost that little pep in my step that I would have had if I knew I looked good and I knew that this outfit was it. So then in that way, fashion isn't only a language to the world. It's a language to yourself. It directly speaks to your self-esteem. Fashion has the power to bring your self-esteem up or send it shooting down. And one of the things my dad used to always tell me, he used to drill this into me, take pride in what you wear. That was one of his most popular statements that I could remember. And by drilling this statement into me, he was telling me more so to focus on that thing that we talked about earlier, how fashion is a language to the world and how it's a form of self-expression and how people perceive you based on what you're wearing. But he was also telling me that it speaks to me as well, and I should also take pride for myself in what I wear. And from letting me know that early on, he was already letting me know that clothes are never just clothes. And I've seen so many different ways in which fashion can act as a tool of empowerment for people. It's so obvious, and it happens in so many beautiful ways. So I'm going to give a quick story. It's a very hypothetical story. I literally made it up myself, but it is true for many people. Let's say there's a young boy from a conservative family who has a flamboyant style, but he's from a conservative family, so that doesn't really fly. So when he goes to school every day, the first thing he does is go to the bathroom and pull out this bright pink shirt from his bag that he stole from his sister's room. And he changes into it every day so he can walk around feeling a little more like himself every single day. Or maybe he pulls out the mascara from his mom's room and he looks in the bathroom mirror at school and puts it on every day. No one can really see it or really tell that he's wearing mascara, but he knows, and it makes him feel a little bit better about himself because he feels like he's being true to who he is. And then, of course, everybody knows that classic movie trope where the main character who was either shy or insecure gets a makeover and is instantly more sure of themselves and more confident. I feel like everybody's seen that a million different times. And there's this iconic scene in probably one of my all-time favorite movies ever, Devil Wears Prada. The big fashion makeover scene where she's walking through New York City in all of these different looks, and it's incredible and amazing, but you can tell the character shift and how she is more confident in herself. We've also seen like Princess Diaries and how she had her makeover. You guys know the movie trope. We know this. But the point is how fashion is a tool of empowerment for so many different people to be more sure of themselves and to increase their self-perception of themselves. And it's just a beautiful and wonderful thing and a wonderful power that fashion holds. And oh my gosh, guys, we cannot talk about fashion being a form of empowerment without mentioning the body positivity and inclusivity movements. Come on. I don't think I have ever seen, and I might be wrong about this, so take this with a grain of salt, but I don't think I personally have ever seen a greater transforming force in fashion than the body positivity and inclusivity movements. And I could be 100% wrong about that, like I said. But the fashion industry has virtually been completely transformed with these diversity movements, and it makes perfect sense. Because if, as we've established, fashion has a direct line to influencing your self-image, then if fashion isn't being produced for you, then it sets you up for low self-esteem ultimately because you feel that you don't belong. You can see that you don't belong. Fashion is for people, and thus it should represent people. This is why representation is so important, because fashion literally has the power to shape social beauty standards and social norms and our values and what is just accepted in society, which is why I'm so grateful and so thankful that the fashion industry is now, as we know, being pushed to be a lot more conscious of this power that they have and more responsible in how they wield this power, and to ensure that diversity in so many different areas like height, shape, race, gender, and even age is represented in the industry. And the thing about it is that when fashion makes that shift that we've seen, then it immediately encourages society's mindset to shift as well. I feel like we've talked about so much already, but also when I was looking into this topic about the power of fashion, I came across this thing that stood out to me about fashion's ability to form communities and strengthen bonds with others. And I thought, okay, I understand how fashion shapes culture, it shapes history, how it shapes our self perception, our self expression, and all of these things. But I couldn't for the life of me think about how fashion can literally form relationships. But then when I continued reading, it just became so clear to me, and I can't believe I overlooked it. But we see it all the time. Whether it's a relationship forming between two strangers over their love for streetwear, or families passing down sentimental vintage pieces that go on for generations and generations, or it's friends bonding over a shopping trip. There's so many different times in which fashion creates a sense of belonging and shared identity with another person or another individual. And that connection can transcend the boundaries of time, it can transcend the boundaries of age, culture, language, whichever. Fashion has that ability to make connections with people in ways that we may not have been able to without it. And this is especially true for if you meet somebody who has the same style as you. You instantly feel connected to that person. If someone is wearing a matching top to you or has a very similar outfit or something, then you kind of feel this unspoken bond between that person, even if it's a random person. And of course, this may be a lot less true if you just see a guy wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans and you're also wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. You may not really even notice each other. But for the most part, fashion has been able to form bonds between people for centuries in ways that they might not have even been connected unless fashion had to play a role in that. And I think that's pretty amazing. Now, with all of the fashion weeks cracking on, sorry, I wanted to use a little bit of British slang there in honor of London Fashion Week. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, with all of the fashion weeks happening, it's a perfect time to take a glimpse into the future of fashion and in what ways fashion will be using its power. First of all, we can't go into this topic without mentioning Gen Z and millennials. The Gen Z generation, Gen Z, has completely revolutionized the fashion world. They have done so much work that is absolutely incredible. They have really prioritized, first and foremost, individuality and self-expression when it comes to fashion. Our generation has been basically reshaping the mold and making our own rules that include everyone in fashion as opposed to just a select few. And that in and of itself has been revolutionary. Plus, the fashion industry has really honestly made a lot of room for young people to come in. And two people that instantly come to mind when I talk about this is, first off, Jared Elner, who is a really wonderful up-and-coming stylist who has styled so many incredible people that I love as well. Emma Chamberlain, Sabrina Carpenter, Camila Cabello, so many different celebrities. And then also I think everybody, if you have a phone and you're on social media, has seen Wisdom K, at least on TikTok majorly. He comes up with these incredible outfits and mixes high fashion with accessible everyday style in so many incredibly creative ways. And he has also been making some movements in the fashion industry recently. So those are two really amazing examples. And as always, fashion stays being a reflection of the time. So having a younger generation taking over the industry is not really a surprise because youth are kind of taking over the world right now. And the way that they're using fashion's power is so amazing because they're using it to break down harmful stereotypes and increase equality and inclusivity and so many different major things that are reflected in our society today as well. Fashion really has become a platform for activism. And one other thing that is super hot today is AI. I know everybody's been talking about it. Everybody's been either super excited or scared about the introduction of AI. I feel like I'm comfortably in the middle. Like it intimidates me, but it excites me at the same time because it makes my life easier, but also it can just be really weird to look at the amount of technology that we've created. But AI's influence on fashion is definitely there. There's so many cool and, like I said, borderline scary things I found when I looked into AI and fashion. So top designers like Tommy Hilfiger and Stella McCartney, and also brands like Burberry are really using AI to just streamline the fashion industry. I'm not going to get into all of them right now because that's just like a whole other topic, but they've been using AI to create design ideas, trend prediction. AI can literally predict what the trends of the future are going to be. AI has been used to streamline garment production. There's virtual try-ons. Literally, that's incredibly weird. Like you can look online for an item of clothing and see what it would be like in your home and see what it would be like on you without having to buy it yet. That just like, I don't even know what to make of that. But what has been really great though is that with AI using its tool to streamline the fashion industry production processes, it's also been able to reduce the amount of waste that's produced in fashion production, which leads me into, of course, what I saved as the best of the best for the last. One of the issues that I am most interested in, and what I think to be the most pressing issue of our time: climate change and sustainability. We've heard it a million times. I know. I can feel people rolling their eyes. I can feel people groaning, but it is really important. And I think fashion has become a lot more aware of the role that they play in the climate crisis. And I'm seeing really good things through fashion brands and Fashion Week as a whole. There's just there's this really cool thing that I saw this year for Fashion Week. And I had mentioned this on the Instagram, so make sure you follow the Instagram to get these things before the podcast comes out. But one really cool thing this year is that during London and New York Fashion Week, eBay introduced the first ever endless runway, which was the first ever pre-owned fashion show featuring only pre-owned items which people could buy right there, right off the runway at affordable prices. That's insane. And it was in Fashion Week. It wasn't in some like rinky dink runway show that no one knew about. It was in Fashion Week, which just shows that the fashion industry is really starting to prioritize sustainability and mindful eco-friendly actions when it comes to fashion. And I think this is really because the fashion industry has been hammered so much about fast fashion that they're actually starting to make moves towards ethical production and environmentally friendly practices, albeit definitely not fast enough. There are still a lot of brands that really, really don't care about fashion and its impacts on the environment, but the consumers are calling for that change. And the consumers really shape the fashion industry. We shape the fashion industry. And a lot of us are demanding that switch to sustainable practices. So I'm hoping that that continues and that I continue to see this wonderful direction that fashion is starting to take. So yeah, I do see the future of fashion being a lot more sustainable focused and AI focused and youth focused. So yeah, oh my gosh, with that, I think that's all I have today, guys. I feel like I've talked so much. I feel like it's been a mouthful today. But it was really amazing being able to come and talk to you guys again. As always, I really do enjoy doing these and being able to talk to you guys every week about so many different things. So please stay tuned for next week's episode. Should be a fun one. We're going to go to more of the relatable side of things, more of my personal life and 20s and what that's like. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys come back again to listen to me yap. And if you enjoyed, please leave a review and share this podcast with somebody who you think would enjoy. And if you want more of this podcast, you can check out our socials on Instagram and TikTok. It is Notes and Quotes Pod. And on YouTube, it is the Notes and Quotes Podcast. And if you want more of me, you can check me out on Instagram at Naomi A. Cambridge. And always feel free to shoot us a DM or message us or check the show notes for more information about how to contact us. And we are sure to respond to you and engage with you and connect with you. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And I will see you next week.